Hey guys, welcome to the Professional Development Podcast, and we have a special 420 episode. We're here with Drew Lammert, founder of KindGoods, and we're at the Daybreak Cannabis cultivation facility. So if you're not watching on YouTube, we're actually surrounded by weed farther than we can physically see. So Drew, thanks for having us, and more importantly, for trusting us out here.
Hey, glad we could have
great.
you. Yeah, seriously, yeah. I'm glad we could do it in the flower room here at Daybreak Cannabis. Thought it was a good setting for us all to sit down and have a discussion, huh?
For sure. And so we want to talk about a lot of things today. I know you know the whole background of weed just as a business. Your company has a pretty good story and like why your company, but I figured we'd start with you because it didn't seem like I don't think there is a traditional route to go about selling weed, but
Well, there is a traditional route.
There's a traditional route.
It's just not normally legal.
I have a lot of high school buddies that went the traditional route, right? But there's no traditional successful route. So you've got a corporate background where you're a lawyer, but tell us about your story and how you got into this.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I mean, I still an attorney. I work for McCarthy Leonard Kammer. Business litigation is what I specialize in. But yeah, about 3 or 4 years ago, I started looking into when's Missouri going to bring essentially legal cannabis here. It was something. Let me back you guys up. I'd say back in 2009, they legalized medical marijuana out in Colorado. I had a client, a legal client at my firm, who was looking to get a cultivation facility set up out in Colorado. He came to me, wanted help with all the legal stuff, putting it together. Well, fast forward, we found ourselves talking to the first lobbyists and lawyers who were really dealing with the medical marijuana law that was implemented out there. And, I was fascinated by it. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, look, I'm sure we'll talk about it. I've been smoking weed every day since I was 18 years old, and it's something that I've incorporated into my life. So aside from being, I guess more or less someone who likes to smoke and use cannabis, I now had a chance to work with a client on the legal side out in Colorado. And I was fascinated by it. Told myself that if it ever came to Missouri, I would lunge at it. And again, back 2009, I figured we'd be the 50th state to actually legalize medical or recreational marijuana. But lo and behold, Missouri did it at about the right time. Another thing that I think kind of drove me, my wife is a kidney transplant recipient. As she was going through dialysis, she's young. She was probably 33, 34 at the time. We had our daughter sent her kidneys into failure, and actually Jamie Coquet, the one who had more or less reached out to you about perhaps me being a guest here, her boyfriend actually is the one that gave my wife a kidney.
Oh, wow.
So that's a great obviously story in and of itself. We don't need to get into, but she's on dialysis. She's nauseous. She's got all this stuff come through, and I know what's going to work for her because I'm sitting probably across on the other side of the room, using a product that I know is going to make her feel better, going to help her eat, but she got skinny. And, the problem, I think, more than anything is it pissed me off because if it came up in her system, we were so scared she'd be kicked off the donor list. Because right now, federal agencies run essentially the organ transplant, organ transplant system in this country, for lack of a better term. And, they exclude either donors and or recipients. So something that actually made me passionate about it is just, in addition to I knew it was a good product for me, I'm thinking, man, I just want to give my wife some of this product right now. She'd be able to eat, she'd feel better, and make her comfortable. So that kind of irks you a little bit. Get to 2018, here it is. They pass it. I got to say, it was something we were anticipating and we were already talking about it, but I felt a little bit behind the time when it did pass because I don't think anybody really thought Missourians were going to come out here and do it. And they did it, man. And they did it. Not only did they have 3 different measures on the ballot, they chose the right one and they voted to the tune of 66%, showing the Missourians, they use cannabis, they want cannabis. And yeah, man, that's how it really started. And from that point, literally the week after it was voted here in Missouri, back in November 2018, my 2 partners and I were on planes out to Colorado. We had essentially retained a consultant out there who used to regulate all of the cannabis operators. And so his Rolodex was full of nothing but cannabis operators out there. He leaves his public sector, flips into the private sector, and starts helping companies like mine get licenses. Well, what you're doing essentially is paying for his Rolodex. Yeah. We're going out there for every week to meet with all these operators. We chose eventually find a company that, we just felt the synergies were there, good company we can trust, and we essentially partnered up with them on a consulting basis. And these guys, what struck a chord in us is they've institutionalized cannabis. Every business that we see, they've basically done and brought the SOPs to it, married it up with what we consider to be what you want to see in any well-functioning operating company. And so, got in bed with those guys, started working, learning, got all their stuff, and applied for licenses. Obviously they helped their background to help our applications look nice. Yep. And we were fortunate enough. It was very competitive here. It was about 2,300 applicants for only 330 licenses. We applied for 6, 3 dispensaries, 2 cultivation facilities, and 1 manufacturing facility. And we ended up getting all 6. We were very fortunate in a competitive environment. And ever since then, we were awarded the licenses December 2019. And we've been trying to stand these sons of bitches up ever since. Yeah. Been going through development and all the rest of the rigmarole that takes to stand essentially 3 separate companies up at one time.
And awesome. I guess what I find interesting is there's a big stigma around weed, marijuana, and your story kind of talks about your interest of getting involved with your wife and how something like this can make such a big difference. How do we break down that stigma of weed not just being the high school drug or a drug? How do we break that down to make it come more mainstream?
I think we're watching every state do it on their own right now with the laws they're passing. I think we were I should know this, 33rd or 34th state. I think there's 37 states now in the country that have now passed either medical or recreational cannabis. So I think you're seeing just by the legislatures and the people voting on constitutional amendments, they're showing that the stigma is broken. How you break the stigma for the people that, yes, are essentially still running and feeding that stigma, it's very simple. You show them you show them the cancer patients, you show them the kids with epilepsy, and you show them what this simple plant is doing for these people. And if they still want to shake fingers at us and tell us we're using drugs and we're bad people, now some people are using it recreationally, so I'm not going to exclude that, but that's how you break the stigma down, is that this is not only a plant that can help those people. I think it's just that. It's a plant that can help people, and then the rest of it, if they want to judge the recreational users, let them judge that. But the fact that it's a Schedule I classified drug under the Federal Drug Act, when it can help epileptic children and help cancer patients and the long list of ailments that's in our law that it can help, it makes you. I challenge any one of those people to sit there and tell me that we would be wrong for legalizing it for at least those people, which is what we've done in Missouri, right? This is a medical program.
Yep. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of health benefits. Just in terms of business, it's obviously a thriving business, but a lot of hoops to jump through, right?
A lot of hoops. It's a highly regulated industry, as we know, because of the biggest issue is it's still federally illegal. Technically, every state, this business right here is operating illegally under federal law. Now we're protected under state law because it's legal, but I think that's one of the biggest issues we have is the fact that dichotomy between state and federal law.
So how does that work in terms of do you guys only collect cash because it's not you can't use a credit card at a dispensary in Vegas, right? Because it's not backed by the FDIC, I guess. So if you're using it for medical reasons, just curious, does insurance cover that? How does that get paid to you guys?
It's a great question. To answer the last one, no. Insurance it will not cover this right now. I can assume that's only because they are juggernauts that do,
Right.
operate in every state. They're doing interstate business. So
Yeah.
what we found is the bigger the company and the more interstate business they do, the more hands off they're going to be on getting into this industry. I mean, I think your biggest industries right now that are just salivating to get into this industry that can't are, tobacco,
Yep.
big pharma,
Yep.
liquor, big banking. When it becomes federally legal, which it will, they will seize the market. And right now, and whether that's to protect their own market share on the, whatever they see us as a competitor, and it's also because I think they see it as a lucrative industry.
Yeah. Or they buy you out for a huge multiple.
Well, that's, we do have investors that I think, would very much like so. And I think, when the time is right, when the market speaks itself, that's always a discussion that any business owner is going to have.
How will federal legalization change this? Just last week, Congress passed the first act to decriminalize it in the United States, which will then, I believe, also make it to where these big corporations that are in the tobacco industry, alcohol industry, big pharma, like you said, they're going to start having a role in the industry. And how is that going to affect you as being I guess you would say, right now you're a big guy, but that'll now make you a very small person in the pond.
Yep. I mean, it's a really, really good question. I mean, for one, I think I'm just going to start by saying it's great to see that cannabis is even an issue in Washington, let alone that the U.S. House of Representatives just passed a legalization bill, the MORE Act, last week. It's if it goes over to the Senate, which is now a democratically held chamber, so they have both chambers. One would think we would have an easy passage. But yeah, if they were to vote it in over there, obviously it's going to go to Biden. I don't think he's shown himself to be pretty lukewarm on recreational cannabis, but I don't think he has the balls to veto that. So if it becomes federally legal, I haven't read the finite details of the law, but essentially from what I know, they're going to implement a 5% tax, federal tax. They're going to leave the governance of cannabis to each state. So each state's program would continue to still operate. And I think essentially how it affects us is it's a 5% passed on additional tax. And then, the obvious, what you said, we partially answered is all of those other big fish out there that are waiting on the sidelines come swarming. And what does that look like? Well, you have one or two options. You start, leveraging and acquiring yourself to compete, or you see what they like and what they're offering, and you make the best decision for you and your investors.
Yeah. I have a quick question. So you were walking us through the facility, which is badass, by the way.
Appreciate it.
And you brought up, some of your employees may have come from a company like Monsanto. And so it's weird because Monsanto's in the seed business, right? Like, and they have substantial resources. They could create some badass strands, you think? Or do you think they'll ever enter into the seed business of this?
Absolutely. I can't fathom how they could afford not to.
Yeah.
All what Monsanto does is
Seeds,
make
plants,
make plants, make crops. And I don't want to over summarize. Monsanto does big things, but yeah, I think they very much have a nice little slot in this, and of course the capital if they wanted to get into this industry. But I think you may be seeing a situation where, again, a company that size, Bayer now,
Bayer.
that is now a German-based company, they don't want to tempt the federal government,
right.
So they're just choosing not to probably get involved. Would be my guess.
Yeah. Can you talk? Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
So I'm sure you've heard this a lot. We're going through what's called the Great Resignation, where it's really hard to find people. In your industry, how hard is it to find people and to recruit teams?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And the answer is it is not hard at all. We are probably the only industry that is not facing that labor shortage problem. I mean, I will give you just an example. KindGoods, which is our dispensary line. We have 3 in St. Louis here. Our first store, we opened up the Fenton store. I think we took 12 positions, 12 cannabis specialist positions, essentially bud tenders, the people who are going to, walk through the all the product and help you find something for you. Opened up 12 positions. We received 1,100 resumes for those 12 positions. So yeah, it's so much so I believe KSDK at one point in time, which was nice because we were just opening up that first dispensary. KSDK came out and basically did a special on just that, and I believe that the title of the article was, cannabis defies the labor shortage, issue.
Yeah.
So with 1,100 applicants, you got to get the best people.
Yeah.
Like, what's the interview process look like for
It's great.
finding a
That's great.
Dan's not a recruiter.
connoisseur?
First things first, just to summarize, we've got a great team. I was kind of mentioning that to one of you beforehand, but every state that's come on, it's gotten more sophisticated. We basically, we've got some good people behind us, and it was like speed dating. Let's put it that way. We broke up. There was probably, just to answer that question, we probably had 10 of us at corporate, broke up into teams of 2, 5 tables, brought, our HR department, our head of our HR director, Jess Hutton, she crushes it. She went through probably all 1,100 of those applications, phone screened everybody to where we had a subset of maybe 60 to 70 people, brought them in, and then we had like a speed dating hiring event.
Do you have them smell the product and give their feedback?
Let them know if they actually know what they're talking about.
You definitely ask them about their experience with the product, but I will tell you one thing that Strawberry Fields, the company we worked out of Colorado, they were very serious about saying, look, you don't need anybody with cannabis experience, and you're not going to find them because you're in a brand new market. They actually, depending on which company you're talking about, they actually prefer people without cannabis experience because they've got their own SOPs, and we're going to train them up on those processes. They'd rather have the organic, learning process as opposed to someone who's coming in with preconceived notions about how to grow a good.
So you had how many openings?
I believe 11 openings, 12 openings, and 1,100 applicants.
Well, you mentioned too earlier, so many people are willing. You have these people leaving these big corporate jobs to take pay cuts to come work in here because this is the sexy industry to get into right now. It's new. So from a funding standpoint, from a licensing standpoint, whenever they announced that everything was going to be legal here in Missouri for medicinal purposes, I had a buddy from Oregon who was trying to get in on that, and he was saying it was damn near impossible to try and get in. So do you know how many people had licenses that were approved, or what was that process like to get funding? Obviously this is a beautiful facility and you put $40 million into this, right? So how'd you go about getting that money, and then was the licensing process incredibly difficult?
Yeah, your buddy from Oregon, you tell him I'm sorry, because it was. I couldn't imagine the effort. Hell, we had a lot of money into this before, and if you didn't get those licenses, depending on how hard you went at it and what your plan looked like, it was a heartbreaker. I know people that lost licenses, and I feel for them. Obviously, we're very fortunate that did not happen to us. We actually only got 4 of the 6 to start. We had to file an appeal for the other 2, but it was very stringent. You could tell. Look, I can go back to when I read the constitutional amendment, the law that they were bringing here. I had read other states' laws. They did it right, as they should, right? They were the newest state. You better have learned from the 32, 33 states that came before you and all the times they got their hand burned to pass the best law here. So it was undoubtedly a great law. And the reason we know that is we saw some of these big multi-state operators. Those are the biggest companies in our space, and it's self-defining. They're in multiple states, and you saw a lot of those MSOs, those multi-state operators, try to seize this market, and some of them did not get licenses, and they've got licenses in 6 and 7 states. So it was very competitive. I think we had hired an application writer out of California. He their team, bunch of lawyers. They wrote the applications. Myself, as a lawyer, I do a lot of brief writing and a lot of appellate work. I basically jumped on at the end. I asked for basically drafts so I could see what we were dealing with, and they had the platform laid out, but it needed cleaning up. So I basically took 2 months, basically stepped away from work, and we worked on that application and just tweaked it and made it the best that it ever could be. And it turned out, it worked well for us because it's the way they did it. You couldn't just throw up on paper and show them all the graphs and all the cool and wow them with information. there was probably 80 plus questions. Every question was either rated 3, or you could only answer it with 3, 500, or 1,000 words. So imagine you've got this big business plan to run these companies, and they want you to synthesize it down into these 3 to 500,000 word answers. I think that's probably where I was able to help. I'm so used to writing. For every federal court has different restrictions on how they want you to brief, and time and limits and all that. So some of that tweaking to kind of put the best 300 words, 500 words together, that's probably with my strong suit. And then the guys out that we hired brought in all the actual, the business plan, the know-how, in addition to our team out of Colorado.
What was the cost just to file for the applicant? Was it like 10 grand or something?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think 10 grand for cultivation license, and this stuff's all posted on the Missouri DHSS website,
Yeah.
but 10 grand for cultivation, 5 grand for manufacturing and dispensary.
Yeah, and there were probably a lot of people, because I think we know a group of people that like tried it. They just thought, oh, we'll pool our money, we'll send 10 grand in, and then they'll give us the license.
Right.
And you actually did the homework, and you guys knew what the fuck you guys were doing. So, you know what I mean? Totally different than a group of guys that are like, oh, dude, we're going to do this.
Money together.
You know? And
Yeah.
so I think that there were a lot of people thinking that they would just be able to dive in.
Nobody knew it was going to be this competitive here. I mean, I guess if I go back to my first organic reading of the law, I was like, holy shit, this is my backyard. This is where I was born and raised. I've got to put everything I have into this and get it going. People eventually caught on, and that's what made it so competitive. So the guys that maybe were just thinking, hey, I'm going to give it a go, let's pool some money together, quickly we're never going to have a chance, unfortunately, because people saw the opportunity, and they clawed and scratched to get into this market particularly.
So sorry, Brad.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, what's your vision for Daybreak and KindGoods? Do you have like a goal as, here's how many dispensaries I want, here's how many grow facilities, cultivation centers I want? What's the big picture? What's the end goal?
Well, for one, the first goal, the whole reason we got into this space is our patients. All right, the Missouri patients, help them to get cannabis out there to help whatever ailments they have. I don't care if it's anxiety down to, like I said, cancer or something worse. So to help them. Secondly, I would say it's to pay off our awesome investors and the total $40 million that they gave us to stand up all 3 of these businesses. And past that, it's or maybe I should say, third goal that's simultaneous with the first goal is to sell the best product that's out there on the market, and just bring everybody, a top grade A product that stands up on the shelf and that smokes competition.
Are you limited on how many dispensaries you can have right now, and do you think they'll eventually increase those licenses?
Good question. Right now, you are limited under the medical law here in Missouri. A group like an individual ownership group can only have 5 dispensaries. We have 3 right now. If anybody who's listening wants to sell, we want 2 more. So
you can buy out somebody
up.
who already has a license.
You can.
Okay.
Under strictures. I mean, nothing happens in this industry without the state's permission. But so you can have 5 total. You can have 5 dispensaries, 3 total cultivation facilities, and then 3 manufacturing facilities. But you would never want to get 3 manufacturing facilities, because I can produce as much out of my 1 manufacturing facility as you can with 3. So there's really no reason to have 3.
So a question I have, which might go a little bit back to the federal part of it, is how did you find a bank that wanted to work with you through all this? Because that's like, none of the money is insured, right, through this whole process. So how does that work?
And that's a good question. One thing I guess I'll say, I'm not going to necessarily put our bank's name out there right now. I don't think I'd be comfortable doing that until I talk to them. But there is a local bank here that is banking the entire industry, or at least local St. Louis
everywhere
part of the
in
industry.
St. Louis, they're pretty much involved.
I'd be surprised. There's probably not too many. Other banks out there. But yeah, we have payroll. We have full banking. Funny story is the guys we work with out of Colorado, their jaws will drop when they found out how long we made it with an American Express account. We made it
Really?
probably from the inception. I'd say we probably opened the account early 2020. And we got all the way through the build of this facility, which God only knows how much went on that Amex through the build of this. And then all of a sudden, boom, they shut us down.
Did they send a letter?
They might. I have talked to my partner. Yeah, it's basically a letter saying your MRB account, which is the federal list marijuana-related business, and our Amex went nowhere. So now we are essentially running these 3 companies on 3 debit cards right now.
Wow,
That's crazy.
that is actually insane.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I was out in Vegas a couple years ago, right when recreational became a thing, and we went to Steve Aoki's birthday bash.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was the guy that works for me, and we were there. We were hanging out, and right in front of us, these guys, they were just buying $20,000 worth of bottle service. Well, anyways, they pay with all cash. So we're like, what do you guys do? They're like, we own the dispensaries, and we have to get rid of all this cash.
Makes sense. I mean, yeah, there are some states, I believe. I mean, I think most states, the credit unions have stepped up in a lot of states. But yeah, there are still companies out there that deal with cash. There may even be some Missouri companies. Some of those guys who are in have dispensaries in the more rural areas that may not have a local bank willing to deal with them. I'm sure there are people dealing with cash only, which, by the way, and I think you guys probably all know, is a huge problem for this industry. Yeah. And one of we talk about this MORE Act that was passed in the House. I still think the first piece of legislation to be passed on the federal level is going to be the Safe Banking Act, because the Safe Banking Act does simply this. It allows legitimate state-run companies like ours to have access to banking and to lending. And so I think a lot of people recognize you can't have vehicles full of cash going all around in this pretty burgeoning industry in every state. So they recognize it's like, okay, well, let's let these guys stop carrying cash around. I mean, they've got families, they've got, they're just trying to earn an honest living, and we've got them out running around with vehicles stacked full of hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash.
That is interesting, just because there is so much money being created with this industry. Like, does crypto solve that at all? Can you even purchase crypto with it?
That's funny, and I don't want to get too much. I don't have anything.
His next business venture.
I've got nothing solidified to tell you on that, but yeah, there are discussions going how we can essentially.
Because then you can get a digital currency.
Yeah.
To support the industry.
Yeah,
right?
No, it's interesting. I can tell you low-level conversations. Maybe it's just spitballing over smoking a joint, but the discussions have been out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, read a stat. Goldman Sachs, in terms of their hiring, they have 236,000 global applicants. They're obviously one of the most prestigious financial institutions on Wall Street, right? They're at a 1.5% acceptance rate. And after 20 minutes of doing that math, 1,111 acceptances, that's 1%.
It took you that long to do that math? 1,100?
It did. Yep.
To 11?
Yep.
11 divided by 1,100.
Yeah, I did.
Where'd you go to hie school?
St. Mary's. Fucking proud of it too. Yeah. And I went to college for 6 years, so you guys should not be surprised at this.
That's a lot of college.
So Drew, you guys are more selective than Goldman Sachs and have a lower acceptance rate. Are you ready to go on the record and say that you're a better company than Goldman Sachs?
We sell cannabis, absolutely.
100%, yeah.
Best product in the world.
Yeah. Non-business related, how do I not get paranoid when I smoke weed? Because I can't. Every time, it's like, maybe maybe it's what I'm smoking, maybe it's what I'm doing. I don't know. Or sometimes when I do edibles, is there certain kinds that can combat that so I can just get high as fuck and enjoy it?
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
Long answer is I'd invite you to get your medical card.
Okay.
Come into one of the dispensaries, get with one of our awesome cannabis specialists, and absolutely you will find something that will not make you anxious. Maybe it's a myth or not, but I've heard plenty of people, say that it makes them anxious. There are racier strains, sativas, that may cause people to do that. I don't know personally because no strain has ever affected me. I like them all.
Yep.
But yes, there's something for you.
Okay.
For sure.
What's the before you were into all this, legally, right? What's the highest milligram of edible you've ever taken?
See, that's funny. Now I'm not a massive edible fan. To me, it's a body high compared to more of a head high.
Yep.
I prefer that flowers is king to me. I like rolling up a traditional joint, so I enjoy smoking it. But to get what was your question again?
Highest milligram of edible you've
highest
ever
milligram
taken?
edible. So I actually do not take a lot of edibles, so I haven't mess with it that much. But I do take 5 milligrams every night to sleep. So I can't say 5 milligrams the highest. I'd say 20 milligrams maybe.
It's interesting. I was like I said, I was never really big on it, but a buddy, I had a back issue, and nothing like crazy, but I could barely get out of bed, and it was like right in the middle of 75 hard, and I was like, I have to fucking get up. I have to do a fucking workout, and my buddy's like, let me drop an edible off at your place. And I was like, I don't really do well with weed. I was like, but fuck it. And he dropped it off. I don't know how many milligrams. I just took it because at that point I was willing to do anything.
Yeah.
I took it, and I'm sitting there in bed, and like an hour later goes by, and I kind of, I couldn't get out of bed before. An hour goes by, and like I fucking just like hopped out of bed because I was hungry. And I was like, I'm sitting there high as fuck. I'm like making food, doing lunges in my kitchen, just amazed by how fucking good I feel.
There you go. Case in point. That's why it should be legal everywhere, right there.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. Yeah.
Straight into lunges.
The thing with edibles, though, is they take a while to kick in. And I had never done one before, and I went to this golf tournament in Tunica, right outside of Memphis. And
fun place.
Seemed a little young for that place.
And so this guy's like, oh, here, he had like a bag of them. He's like, here, take this. It was 5 milligrams. So I take it. About 30 minutes go by. I was like, man, it didn't hit. Like, let me get another one. And then like about another hour goes by. I still not feeling anything. I'm like, dude, I don't feel anything. Let me get one more. 30 minutes, nothing. I was like, dude, I think they're expired. Like, but I'll do one more. And I don't typically smoke or anything like that. And now I'm on 20 milligrams. And then driving home from the golf tournament, I'll never forget it. It was a brand new black road with perfect white stripes. And I just felt like zoned in, shoo, shoo, shoo. And I just start cracking up.
Yeah, man.
So they hit me way later. And so it's hard to control what to do with edibles,
Well, and that's see. Now, I guess let me ask you: was that something that someone brought from a dispensary, or was this a black market?
It was a dispensary.
Okay, all right.
It was a product out of like a actual bag of gummies, and it was a recreational product.
No, and that makes sense. I mean, look, they are notoriously known to kick in late. Yeah. You figured that out there,
especially with my metabolism.
I can't even comment on it because I would agree. I look like an asshole.
It's okay. He's used to it.
The best part is the old days when you had black market edibles and you did at least we dose it right. Yeah. There's equal dosing in everything that's sold in our stores. Back then, hell, you could have gotten a little gummy bear. You didn't know if it had 50 milligrams in it or 5. And you put it back, and you're like, shit. Well, here we go.
We did a retreat last year to talk about like where our plans are for the podcast. And so we made a mistake of going to the dispensary before the grocery store.
Total mistake.
And so they took edibles, they drank like THC drinks, and then smoked a joint in the parking lot before we got into the fucking grocery store.
Before we went to like Walmart.
It was like, and I didn't smoke, and he didn't smoke, but the rest of them, it was like fucking herding cats. It's like everybody's grabbing everything.
We couldn't find
aisle.
them in Walmart, man.
No, we couldn't find them. It was awful.
And then we walked down one, Brad just giggling, staring at the cereal section. It was like, what's going on?
Nobody wrecked a car.
Nope.
Nobody got into a fight.
So, actually, this kind of leads me into my next question. In a world that just kind of romanticizes like drinking, why weed over alcohol?
I mean, well, I'll finish with the comment that I just said. I mean, for one, medically, we're helping people, all right? So let's set those people aside because those people deserve this legal product, no matter what, okay? So now we're taking care of them, at least here in Missouri, as they are entitled to. Now let's talk about this recreational market, and in using it recreationally. Why weed over alcohol? Well, for one, we all know how we feel when we drink too much or even a little, depends on who you are. We all know how we act if we drink too much. And we all know the bad things that can happen from drinking too much. I can honestly tell you right now that I can't think of anyone or any instance that I can recall where I heard of a terrible car accident because the guy or the girl was too high. I've never heard of a domestic abuse situation where, the husband came home and just started beating up on his wife because he was too high. I could go on and on and on about why weed is better. I think it makes you feel better for one, and it doesn't dehydrate the crap out of you, but we've already covered that. That's the hangover part.
Yep.
So those are like physical betterments if you use, cannabis over liquor. But I'd say the biggest thing is and let's talk about addiction. I mean, people become alcoholics. I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of people out there that aren't addicted to weed. I have not seen cannabis affect their lives the way that I've seen alcohol affect many people's lives. People close to me, people I've worked with on the legal side, clients. So I just think it's a safer product.
Yep.
It's a more enjoyable product. And, ultimately, if the whole world was, if the whole country was if it was flipped, right? That if alcohol was the Schedule 1, banned drug, and we were all out here smoking, I think the world would probably be a better place.
Yeah.
So, and it is. I mean, for a lot of reasons, it just makes you a better, calmer person. Now, some people may fall asleep and it demotivates them, but that's going to be the worst of it, in my opinion.
Do you think anybody's OD'd on marijuana?
I've never heard of it. It's
Like
actually
not Bob
something.
Marley?
And thank you. You took out the one of the other attributes. I've never heard of anyone ODing on weed. No, I haven't. I've heard of people eating way too many edibles, maybe thinking that they were not going to make it through, but never heard of anybody actually ODing at all. Yeah.
So I have a question back related to the business side of it. We're sitting in here. How many square feet is this building, and how many different plants are we surrounded by right now?
Yeah, right now you're sitting in including the head house and the greenhouse, 65,000 square foot building. In this room you're sitting in here right now is a 30,000 square foot canopy. Essentially, all this white, the white floor you're sitting on where the plants are sitting is 30,000 square feet. We're actually limited per license. That's what the state allows us to grow, up to 30,000 square feet per license. And then this room alone is over 130 yards long and, I guess almost 90 feet wide. So 388 long by about 90 feet wide.
That's insane. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say as a follow-up question, I didn't know if you were going to ask this. Can you equate that to dollars?
You know what? I'd have to get our grower in here to equate that to dollars. I mean, I can, and I'm probably not going to get into it here, but I can only tell you high level what our pro forma say. It's the discussions that I have with our investors. But what each one of these bays is worth right now, that calculation's sitting somewhere. I just don't have it off the top of my head. I can tell you right now that, we hope. I don't even know our pound estimates, and I should off the top of our head on each row what we expect to pull, because that changes by the time by season. Right now we're in winter, less sun, colder temps, so you don't get as much of a yield. The pounds are still $3,000 and above here. We're looking to grow it for all dialed in, and that's why we went with the automation and such. I mean, we're hoping between $200 and $300 a pound.
Wow. And I think,
not bad.
I mean, for anybody watching on YouTube, you probably haven't seen a whole lot of people walking around, and that's because Drew told us that pretty much this entire facility is 100% automated, which when I walked in, I was surprised by. I thought there was going to be a lot more employees tending after these plants. So can you tell everybody exactly why you went with that route over the labor side of things?
Yeah, we went with automation essentially. We're working with a team out of Colorado, the most mature market. We are the most immature market, or at least one of them, being only a year and a half into it. We're working with these guys. They basically, they've got a 2-acre greenhouse. This is a 1-acre greenhouse. And ours will eventually be 2 acres. We've got our second license going in next door. But basically, what they've done is just give us a glimpse into the future. 14 years later, they went from $3,500 pounds down to $500 pounds on the wholesale market. I would tell you there's probably under 5% of those original cultivators that got licensed originally in 2009 in Colorado that are still in existence. So what these guys showed us, and one of the reasons we chose them, the Strawberry Fields team, to work with and help consult with us, is more or less, to keep the cogs down and show us that no matter how bad it gets here, no matter how much price compression sets in like it does in any commodity industry, that we will survive by our way to produce cheaper. And so, yeah, getting back to your question on automation, this entire facility from top to bottom is automated. Every system in it, I could operate it from an iPad or a computer sitting on a couch at home. And I will tell you that's not how we operate it. We have certainly have a team on board, but yeah, we have a lot of automation here. Conveyors, automated watering in certain zones, just wherever we could find ways to essentially keep our costs down, even if we had to come in with more expensive systems on the front end. That was the model.
Yep. So, I think we're going to close out this episode. But before we do, I guess kind of one of the last questions. And is there anything in particular that we didn't touch on, or anything that you want to talk about in terms of Daybreak or in terms of KindGoods?
Where we can find you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. First, thank you guys for coming on. I was excited to bring you guys in here, show you the facility, listen to your podcasts, all last week. Once, I quite frankly, I had already actually heard of you guys, and then put two and two together when I was connected with Jamie.
Well, we are number one.
Yeah.
Oh, so we'll talk about this later. We're number one in Tajikistan, the number one business podcast in the country.
Well, yeah.
In the world.
In the world of
Right, sorry.
In the country.
Yeah, sorry.
in the world of
Did you take
Tajikistan.
I'm dominating Goldman Sachs. You're fucking dominating the podcast.
This is a lot of high level people in this room right now. No,
That's right.
No, but so sorry. You were saying you were actually one of the first people that said you had heard of us. Go on.
No, I did. I had heard it, but put it this way: I had heard of your podcast, and then eventually, I hadn't listened to it candidly, but I had heard what you guys were doing. Maybe it's social media. I came across it, but then when I got connected with y'all, I started listening to some of your podcasts, and honestly, you guys are great. I mean, to come out here and just shoot the shit and just, not have to worry about being all, this is a business-based podcast,
right.
but it's not all, tight suits and ties, I guess I should say. So no, and so thanks for at least wanting to talk about this. I mean, this industry I think is great. It's going to change the world, in my opinion, once we get there, once people stop treating it as a Schedule I drug. And I ask you that if you're in the areas of Fenton, Manchester, St. Peter's, we have 3 dispensaries that go by the name of KindGoods. Please get your medical card, come out and visit us. The smelling good plant we got going on here
Smells very good.
will be available, and we hope at all 190 dispensaries in this state. So keep an eye out for Daybreak Cannabis. We hope to be in stores near you, and pick us up. Try it out.
Awesome. Yeah, man, it's really cool to see what you've done. It's cool that you've executed on it, because there's a lot of people that want to do it. There's very few people that actually execute. So kudos to you on that, and definitely appreciate you coming on, and that's all I got.
For sure.
It was awesome.
Yeah, guys, thank you,
this
man.
was badass.
It's
Drew,
a
thanks so
pleasure.
much, man.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Cool.